Welcome /malicious compliance. Boss, think about whether you want to keep working here. Me, okay, I don't. Apologies if the English isn't perfect, it's not my native tongue. Nearly 2 years ago I started work at company as their digital marketing person. After I started, it turned out that I was brought in to put out the fires left by my predecessor, the VP marketing, who had a team of 4 plus himself, spent over $1 million in 1 year, and brought in 5 deals, 2 of them for under $10,000. As you can well imagine, after a performance like that, I had lots of work to do, and very little to do it with. Aside from 1 or 2 paid tools, everything else was to be done using free tools only. I'm gonna do some bragging here. I beat the previous year's figures in all categories with 10% of the budget. When I started, I thought Bossman, founder/seer, had a really good management style, saying things like, "Your successes are yours, your mistakes are mine, and the enemy of good is great. I don't expect perfection. I want you to make sure things work and get them done." In essence, I was allowed to run my own one-man department and outsourced freelancers, and as long as I was getting results, he left me alone. Since I was the only person on the marketing team, I also had to learn a large number of skills and platforms that weren't directly related to digital marketing. Not to say everything was perfect, but things were pretty good. One of the main things that weren't perfect was that Bossman had serious anger management issues. As I said before, he left me alone, but I saw him blow up at and fire other people for stupid shit. He lost it at me too once or twice, but he'd calm down after a couple of hours and things would be back to normal. If it looks like an abusive relationship, that's because looking back, that's exactly what it was. As the year came to an end, I approached Boss and initiated a performance review. I ran him through everything I had done in the past year, and he was pretty surprised at how much I had done with so little. I asked him for a raise, pointing out that I was currently making $8,000/month in local currency, averages $4,500/month, when people with my, now augmented, skill set were making between $13,000-14,000/month. I asked him for $12,000. He said he'd get back to me, and never did. Every time I asked him about my raise, he had another excuse. After the last excuse, I began looking for something else. The other day we had a meeting, and it turns out that 2 months ago I made a mistake. It wasn't a critical mistake, and it was rectified within a few hours of discovering the mistake. No harm or damage was caused whatsoever to company, but Bossman flipping lost it. I mean slamming on tables, yelling for the whole office to hear, what have you. Then he said the magic words, "Pack your things up and go home. Think about whether you want to keep working here." So that's what I did, and 10 seconds later I said no, I don't. I started packing my shit up, while he turned an even deeper shade of red, and got even louder. I didn't answer him at all, just kept on packing up my things, and saying goodbye to my colleagues. Turns out that being ignored really pushed his buttons, to the point where he started threatening to call security to have me removed, while I was actively removing myself and my things from the office. Here's a part where it gets beautiful. My country is very strict on employees' rights. Sorry, Americans, I feel your pain. His words and behavior are considered an improper dismissal. By law he's required to give me 30 days notice of dismissal, which he didn't. When he realized his mistake, he convened a pre-dismissal hearing, but it was already too late. He's opened himself up to a lawsuit, which I'm already talking with lawyers about. Because by law he has to give me those 30 days notice, even though he already fired me. For the next 30 days I'm eligible for all the benefits and social rights in my salary, but I can do jack shit for him, and there's nothing he can do to me without making the incoming lawsuit 10 times worse. I've already got 4 interviews lined up for next week, paying almost double what Boss was paying me, and best of all, I'll be interviewing for other places on his dime. The cherry on top is that because I'm the only marketing person, without me, nothing happens in the marketing department for the next month, and if he doesn't hire someone on in time, I won't be around to answer any questions the new person might have. If they are doing it for the same reason I am, it's to keep themselves anonymous. When you're a small minority group, it sometimes makes you feel like you could easily be found online. If I look up Emma on Facebook, based on my location, I'd never be able to sift through and identify the specific person I was looking for, unless I was lucky, considering it's the most common female name in the US. If I was called Santiago or some other name that might be popular in your home country, but isn't in your new home, I could easily sift through the handful of names that show up in your local area. Now add the fact that you might spill your home country and current country you're living in, and other small details that serve as filters to find you. It's creepy, and so I always keep important details out. Sometimes though it's just so tempting to admit where you're from, since it can serve as anecdotal evidence to stuff. This title reminds me of something my, now former, boss said last week. For context, I work at a minimum wage retail job. Very low skill. You don't need a diploma or anything to do this job. Basically what happened, during a meeting, she said that everyone knew what they were getting into when they got hired. She was trying to rationalize how she treats everyone poorly and general workplace abuse. Then she paused and said, everyone who decides they don't like this job and quit, well, that's on them BC. If they don't like the job and they quit, then they can never work for the company again. When she said that, she said it very smug, like as if she was trying to make it seem like a gotcha moment. I made up my mind about quitting during this meeting. After she said that, without hesitation I said, well, if someone quits BC they don't like the job, then what makes you think they're gonna want to work for the company again? Anyway, she dead as had this surprised Pikachu face. Then got super pissed that I pointed out that no one would wanna return to a job they hate. Narcissistic people hate when you tell them the truth. I did that once. Felt so damn good. Walked around saying my goodbyes to coworkers. Stopped by hours. Found out when I had to return to sign exit paperwork and collect final paycheck. Walked out the door. Came back in 2 weeks. Went straight 2 hours. Declined exit interview. Signed paperwork. Grabbed checks and left. Boss tried to stop me on way out. Where have you been? Didn't any of my now ex-coworkers or ours tell you? You blew up at me. Refused to hear my side. I said I quit and left your office. Bye. With that I handed him my badge and walked out the door. There is nothing more beautiful than taking on a bad boss bluff. I did it once. They hired an incompetent relative of a politician. Boss told me that I could either work for her or take a severance. I said okay, and he was shocked that I meant the severance. I was incredibly happy. I didn't have to work for her and could still collect my salary for up to a year while I looked. Had the best summer, but unfortunately found a great opportunity too soon after. I delayed my start another month just to keep the summer of celebration going on a little bit longer. Have a great month off and new job. You deserve it. This depends on the jurisdiction. For instance, in France it's a lot harder to fire someone, even if they are actively hostile, but generally the law lists a number of legal reasons to terminate someone on the spot. For instance, gross misconduct including assault or causing significant damage. For example, under Czech law, you can terminate an employee for any reason, but you need to give them 2 months notice. If the employee wants to quit, they must give 2 months. If the feeling's mutual, the employer and employee can agree to part ways sooner, even that day. To clarify, an employer can fire a person on the spot, but they have to pay them normally for the duration of the 2 months. Some people outright refuse to ever see their faults and contributions to problems. Their teams are full of deadweight because they lose employees that have any viable employment opportunity elsewhere. It kinda works out because it is easier to abuse deadweight that can't/won't leave. I have left jobs because the boss had temper issues. I mess with them on my way out. Whether true or false, I always tell them my new job pays less. They can't call me greedy. They can't offer me more money to stay. They no longer have the power to abuse or threaten. And they can't offer to fix things without admitting their faults. They are simply unable. It usually ends with quiet acceptance on their part without changing anything. Then I try to recruit away any good employees they may have. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.